actually. The one that the red one has those letters dated January
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I didn't know that that's why anyone's here.
I'm sure you saw it as well. Is that good? Is that good or bad though? And Bill is
No, that's all. I wonder. I said to him, I needed to got should have seen me get out of my car.
Oh, yeah.
You're doing a.
How you doing, Ron? How's everything going? You got it? Good. Did you get bitten by a dog today, did you? How about the snakes? Yeah. Oh, really? Where did you find this? They took the tooth out? Was it? Yeah.
Wisdom. No more wisdom.
Can you feel the difference? 'Cause I gotta have one of my molars that has to come out. Pretty cool.
You want to get some training.
Python.
Well, that's what I was going. I just went outside and looked at you. I have no idea. I'm
Were you
like,
sitting outside?
I parked in front of the school. I took my boxes out. Then I went and parked. And then I walked out. And I was like, I just went out and looked for you.
Okay, miscommunication.
I'll be watching.
This is it. Well, the slits are
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have this tonight anyway, so, yeah. Is it going on, Bill? We're not gonna have it? No. You're in another board. We just want to keep you interested, that's all. You want to turn the microphone? This is zoning board of appeals, April 25th, 2017, continuation of the cease and appeal of the cease and desist order by the alternate zoning enforcement officer with respect to Southbridge Recycling and Disposal Park Incorporated. We still have an open meeting, so right now, gentlemen, you don't have any necessarily questions or anything like that initially. You want to let, I see there's a lot of people in the audience tonight, so maybe we'll start by any abutters or interested parties, or people want to come up and say something, or they have something to say to do that at this point. No one has anything to say. Okay, okay. Counselor?
I was anticipating that some people would have questions or comments, and I was going to just address the issue of swearing in, which we talked about before. If there's nobody has comments, I can say that.
No one has a comment or question or anything like that at this point?
I have a question about swearing in. People are going to be sworn in every time they talk on the microphone, is that correct?
Well, our rules say that any material witness needs to be sworn under oath.
Okay, so people.
But not every single, I think, we do it once for each person. Yeah, I don't think we need to do it every single time they come up to the microphone.
All right.
Okay. Counsel, you have any comments, or at this point, I know you said you wanted to.
I did, if I could, Mr. Chairman, just for a couple minutes. And I think I'm going to go down and use the microphone. But I think
That's fine.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to wrap up for the board and hopefully summarize what we've talked about, and run very quickly through a summary of where I hope we are and where I hope the board will go. First, I want to point out that these basins, the two basins that we talked about, were developed in good faith by the company. I think you'll see in each instance, there are public records out there that show what was filed with the Conservation Commission. You'll see the involvement of the state through the Attorney General's office. You'll see the involvement of the state through DEP. You'll see that no one at the time that either of these basins was put in thought that surface flow would be affected by zoning. I think that's what you see here. It's the point that I hope you'll take away from that. I understand the points that were made before, that there was no determination of zoning, and that's true. But I can submit to you that that's partly because no one expected the surface water flow would affect something. It was really natural flow that we were talking about. There was a lot of discussion at the last session about whether the berms were essential to the landfill. And I think you heard from Ms. Markham that they're not. They are, as something to control surface water flow, they're part of any development that would happen, but you don't need them just to run a landfill. They're not unique to the landfill. You heard from Mr. Poirier that a berm, that a basin is a basin is a basin. So any basin would be the same whether there was a big box store on the property next door, whether there was a farm on the property next door. We're trying to control natural surface water runoff. The structure that we have is the same. It's a basin. I just want to remind you that when we did go forward with both of these basins, there were people from, again, the state and the town was involved. The company was very open about it. There was no effort to conceal any of it. Really, it was done in an open process. There's nothing, this is not a case, even should you find that this is a zoning violation. This is not a case where anyone tried to open zoning laws. This is something where someone put basins in because it was the prudent thing to do, it was the thing to protect the environment, it was the thing that was required of them by judicial and administrative leaders at the time. I want to also remind the board of how we got started here. I mean, this was a letter and an investigation that was brought by the ultimate zoning officer in response to complaints by citizens. But they weren't really complaints motivated by zoning. They weren't really complaints motivated by preserving the agricultural district. I think the only evidence in the record is pretty clear. This was a group whose proclaimed purpose is to shut down a landfill. This is really a collateral attack on the operation of the landfill by people who waited years, sat through open public processes and waited years before they brought anything forward. It's just something, it's clear, it's in the record, it's there for you all to see. And because of that, I think you'll see that if you look at what the complainants would suffer, even if these basins stayed there, there's no injury to anyone who comes on. There's no injury to the parties who brought this. There's no injury to the interests of agriculture, the agricultural zoning district in town. In fact, the wetlands protection that this brings to you, the wetlands protection that these basins bring to Charlton, is all consistent with what you'd expect in an agricultural district. So it is consistent to have these features continue. They don't increase the flow. They do slow it, and they allow it to slowly percolate into the wetlands in a more productive and safer manner. And then I just want to get to the point of I don't know what relief the board has had in mind. I'm hoping that the board will determine that this is not the way to enforce the zoning laws in Charlton, and they will determine that this isn't a case where we can vote to overturn the zoning officer's enforcement letter with the cease and desist letter. And this would be in order to undo these basins, take these basins away, or not necessary, would be a tremendous undertaking. It would damage the environment. I'm not sure exactly whether and how it could be done. You would have to invoke state authority and state permits. It would be very complicated. And undoubtedly, before we got there, we would spend years in court because we would end up appealing that decision. And we do not want to litigate. We would much rather be here before the board. We went before the Conservation Commission because we understood that was the thing to do. The company certainly would have come here if there had been any question. As you can see from the evidence that's in before you, if you look at the notice of intent that was filed for Z4, you can see the kind of information that's on record with the Conservation Commission for Z3 and Z4. They were very public processes. There was no interest and no intent to do anything that might be in violation of the zoning ordinances. So I just ask you to consider all the facts, look at the evidence that's before you. I think you heard, you feel pretty strongly about some of the facts here. I think if on the earlier occasion some of my questioning offended the board the way I treat the alternative zoning officer, I apologize for that. Certainly was not my intent to criticize him, but to make sure that you understood that there are a lot of mistakes honestly be made. People don't understand what a landfill is. People don't, well, even though all of us use them, no one likes having them around. And that's just, and that is the way it is, and we understand that. But I'm hoping that this board will fairly and equitably look at this case, look at where this case is like would go, and that you'll vote to overturn the cease and desist order. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call local boards and commissions. So, any these boards have any comment? We'll call Historical Commission, Board of Assessors, Board of Health, Recreation, Economic Development, Fire, Police, Worcester County Regional Vocational School District, Dudley Charlton Regional School District, Building Inspector, Zoning Enforcement Officer, Water and Sewer Commissioners, Housing Authority, Planning Board, Board of Selectmen, any other local official board, any other certified abutters. Sir,
Yes, I did.
you want to state your name for the record, please, and your address?
Jonathan Sanborn, 12 Jennings Drive in Charlton. I'm also vice chairman of the Charlton Board of Health. My concern, after listening to a lot of these folks talking about well contamination, was, of course, they've got a right to enjoy their houses, number one, but I missed part of the last meeting, and I don't know if it was brought up by Casella, council or not, but is there a sign permit for the second, larger basin that's in Charlton?
Sign, what kind of permit?
Something authorizing Casella to put in that permit.
To put,
I mean, put in the retention or detention pond.
so there's two basins we're talking about.
Right.
One is labeled Z3, the other one's the west basin.
Okay, so it's the larger one. It was the
I don't know
second
which one's the large one, to be honest. The Z3 is the, I kind of refer to one, Z3 has been there longer.
Okay, so it's Z4?
The west basin is the one that was done in 2014.
Okay, so 2014.
Yeah,
I'm just curious as to whether or not any sort of legal documents have been shown that say that Charlton's boards that would be required to approve this, if there's any sort of document that says, yes, we agree and we
so,
signed off.
so they did appear in front of the Conservation Commission and work with the conservation, so they got conservation approval for
And
it.
just Conservation Commission approved.
They may, I don't know if they went through other boards, I do know that they went through conservation from what was in our records.
To the best of my knowledge, as a Board of Health member, even though I was not on the Board of Health at that time,
Yeah.
they did not come before the Board of Health.
You know, whether or not they were required to seek other boards at that time, I don't know, I mean, that's not, I mean, I don't know if that would be a factor tonight or not.
Just, I want to bring up that point, I mean, that the lawyers here for Casella, I think are trying to say that, you know, it's a good thing, and the town knows about it, and they've been transparent and so forth, but from what I am hearing, that's not the case.
Yeah, and like I said, it's, you know, I can't necessarily, you know, it's not really wasn't a part of the meeting last week when we met, and, you know, from my perspective is that, you know, sometimes people come in front of this board that need to meet all the other boards, as you well know, and sometimes they don't come, but they meet, you know, with your board, conservation, planning board, building inspector, you know, I guess it just depends. You know, from the record, I know that they did get conservation approval. To the extent they needed permits or approvals from other boards, I don't know, and I don't know if that, you know, we didn't ask and they didn't answer that question, so,
Okay.
yeah,
I wanted to bring that up because I think
yeah.
it needs to be brought up. To the best of my knowledge, like I say, I don't think this certainly went through full approval of the town boards.
It may not have needed to, it may need, I can't. Yeah.
All right, that's all.
I got one quick question, John. What board you say you sat on?
Board of Health,
Board of Health?
Yes.
And now are you speaking for the Board of Health tonight?
I'm speaking for myself,
So you're
but
speaking
also
for
as a Board of
yourself.
Health member
Okay.
from.
Well, it was just kind of confusing the way you introduced yourself, so.
Right, well, I
that's
wanted
all.
to disclose that I am vice chairman of the Charlton Board of Health. And, you know, I've been going to these meetings for the past year, I've been on the Board of Health for a year, and I've sat with the folks and listened to their concerns and what's been going on with landfill. My opinion, myself, is that what they're going through, besides the well which may or may not be from the landfill. There's other issues that are there, obviously, as well. The odor, the noise, the trash that's going around and so forth. I know that's not part of.
Unfortunately,
Right.
we may empathize with that, but I mean, we're limited to only zoning.
So the reason for them bringing this up was the fact that it's not like they drove by and one day there was no basin, and then the next day they drove by and right by the side of the road, there was a basin. This was back in the woods somewhere where, I mean, you gotta really look hard to find it. I think it may have been Google satellite images that initially brought it to their attention. I mean, to some of the folks that were in the area that were not aware of what was going on. And then speculation by me, but,
Yeah,
all right.
and I do know that I know that there is documentation that was presented to us regarding, you know, both basins. You know, I know that the 2014 basin that was installed did go through the Conservation Commission. The other basin, there was some public records and of that nature to the other basin as well, so. Yeah.
Again, my concern is just.
What boards they needed to go through at the time, yeah.
Whatever they did, I don't think it went through full approval of the meeting boards.
Yeah. I appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, go with Dr. Sanborn's comment, to the extent he was viewed as having discussed material facts. Now the board should address the swearing in issue, notes after the fact.
So we should,
Probably, yeah. Or wait, so the board's choices now are to swear him in and
Yeah.
have him swear that what he just said
Yeah.
was the whole truth, et cetera.
Yeah.
Or unanimously waive the swearing in requirement for the testimony you just heard.
Yeah.
Or ask Casella if they would consent that the swearing in is dispensed. That's our DP excuse.
yeah, so,
If you don't think he addressed material facts, then you don't have to, worry about it.
he asked more of a question. I don't think there was any material facts in terms of that
The
boards.
one fact that I heard was that, to his knowledge, it didn't receive Board of Health, Z4 did not receive Board of Health approval. If you don't consider that material, that's fine. If you do consider it material, then let's just button down the swearing in issue so there's no procedural consent.
Okay.
Since Mr. Krieger's at the microphone, maybe I could ask him a question.
Go ahead, put the microphone.
Mr. Krieger, what if, in the course of this proceedings, that the landfill park gets denied the approval, the appeal? Couldn't they come back to us and ask us, zoning board here, almost immediately for a special permit?
They have not only appealed the cease and desist order, but also requested a variance, a use variance to continue the use of the basin. So they've already requested that relief in the alternative. I don't know that they're eligible for a special permit.
They're looking for a variance.
They are looking for a variance in this proceeding as well as appealing the cease and desist order.
Okay, I didn't know
A
that.
use-
So if they get denied, they don't have a recourse to come back to us almost immediately.
I don't think unless SRDP points to some eligibility for a special permit, I don't think there would be anything else for them to request from this board. The next step would be in court, as far as I know.
So in terms of the swearing in, you wanted to make a vote we unanimously make a vote to waive the swearing in for his testimony, but it has to be unanimous.
But before we do that, before they do this, I'd like to ask counsel
Okay.
concerning what the chairman or vice chairman of the,
Well, let's, if we're gonna ask him a question
was he gonna
regarding.
ask it afterwards?
Let- Dr.
I mean, we're still on it.
Sanborn?
Same.
Do you want to, just coming up, we'll just swear you
I'll
in
ask.
for the testimony you just gave. It's in our rules.
Yeah, no problem.
So the testimony you just gave was the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, it is.
Okay. that solves the problem.
But I have another.
Now, go ahead.
Okay. Attorney Krieger. He, Mr. Sanborn is his name?
Dr. Perhaps.
All right, Dr. Sanborn. Okay. He,
No,
Just on TV.
Just say it.
Just get promoted.
he made a statement that he didn't know, and I guess our board doesn't know, whether or not any of the commissions should have been considered. And so that's nebulous to me. I'd like to know, for my own satisfaction and for this board and the people here, how do we find out what should have been done or what shouldn't have to be done? And I think it has to go back to the town to find out, or another body somewhere that's going to determine whether they should have gone to the health, whether they should have gone to the conservation, whether they should have gone to these different places.
Okay.
And that's my, I feel uncomfortable with that.
All right, there's a couple different parts to that question, so let me see if I can address that. I think the evidence that you've heard and received in writing shows that they went to the Conservation Commission. The only question that I've heard is whether they went to the Board of Health for a site assignment for the basins. Whether you haven't heard any evidence that they did that, you've just heard testimony that, to the best of Mr. Sanborn's knowledge, they didn't, at least for Basin Z4.
Mhm.
First of all, you can ask SRDP if they did. If they received site assignment, see what the answer is. You're entitled to do that. Number two, this is just a zoning appeal and variance request.
Yeah.
So whether the basin was site assigned or not, in my view, and I don't want to be giving legal opinions on the fly here in an open session like this, but this is, I think, straightforward enough one that I'm willing to. Whether there's a zoning violation doesn't depend on whether there was a site assignment. That is, if there was no site assignment, I don't think that helps you find a zoning violation. It may affect your view of the equitable remedy if you choose to uphold the zoning enforcement officer's cease and desist order. You've heard about various equitable factors that SRDP's council raised: good faith, transparency, participation of the town, and a whole list of them that he raised last time, and they're in Exhibit 1. But that's on the remedy side. If you overturn the zoning enforcement officer's order, you don't have to worry about the remedy.
Right.
If you choose to uphold the order and you want my opinion on the equitable relevance of the site assignment, of having gotten the site assignment or not having gotten one, I will give you that opinion. And I don't know at the moment whether site assignment was required. Clearly it was required for the landfill, for every expansion of the landfill. I don't know whether it was required for the basement. So whether they didn't get one, maybe may not be relevant at all. But those are legal opinions that I would have to give you.
Could I ask a follow-up question to the question?
Sure.
Just
Never made.
my thinking is that if they're asking for a variance, and I thought that their thrust was that zoning shouldn't get involved at all. That it's not a zoning issue for what we come in front of us. And why would they ask for a variance if it wasn't a zoning issue?
Because they're seeking the variance in the alternative. If you uphold the order, if you find a zoning violation, then they would like the variance to bless the continued operation of the basins. If you overturn the zoning enforcement officer,
Yes.
then they don't need a variance. So only if you uphold the order.
If we uphold the
If you uphold the
order
order.
and issue a variance, then what happens?
If you uphold the order, the cease and desist order, then they say, okay, now we'd like a variance.
And we can do that tonight too? Is that what you're saying?
You can, yes. It's been properly noticed. I will tell the board, as you know, it's a use variance that they're seeking, right? It's not for a structure, it's for the operation of the basins.
Right. So
And use variances are not permitted under your zoning bylaw, as far as I know.
okay, so why would they ask for it?
Well, they're asking for it because basically what I said before, if you uphold the cease and desist order, they're just trying to seek anything else that they might conceivably get.
Shot in the dark, so.
Well, it's, you know, it's what any responsible council would do, is you seek every piece of relief, even if some of them are
Even.
long shots.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Did I answer those questions? Thank you.
President Arnold, alternate zoning enforcement officer. I'd just like to make a brief summary if I could. I think it's pretty simple what you've heard in front of you, council, as they like to say, I think is wrong in a lot of points. I think specifically, they haven't produced any evidence to show that the catch basins aren't highly landfill, which is what the cease and desist order is based on. So I'd just like to bring that to light again. I think their own expert, Mr. Martin, agreed that the catch basins were part of the landfill. And in fact, they've also went into quite length about how the landfill was developed, like it would a big box store or whatever it may be. So it wasn't until the development of the landfill that the catch basin become required, especially the 14. Because obviously if the water flow hadn't changed, the catch basin 14 wouldn't have been required. I just want to reiterate that. As council pointed out, your bylaw does not allow for use variance. So they could have asked for that. They explicitly prohibit that. Even though that wasn't asked of me, but it is in your bylaw. So that's just a summation of how I see it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want a delivery? Are you satisfied with all the evidence?
Mr. Chairman, could I make just one clarification?
Sure.
We did ask for a variance, we did not ask for a use variance. We were aware of the legal point that Mr. Krieger pointed out. But we did ask in the alternative for a variance if the board does go against us.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the one thing I do want to do. Close the public portion of the meeting. So, Council, at this time, we're going to probably close the public hearing portion of the meeting. Before I do that, though, and before we make our decision, I didn't know if you, I don't think that we'll end up making a decision this evening. So, I think we'll end up pushing it until at least next week. Before we do make a decision, if you'd like to put together some suggested findings of fact for us, and when we do make a vote, if the board decides to adopt some or all of them, it's certainly at your discretion. The only thing we would ask is that probably you make it bullet points, and probably 2 pages or so would be. I don't want to have 10 or 15 pages worth of facts. Obviously some facts are undisputed, but if you want to do that.
We'll do I think we'll do our best. I can't promise on the 2 pages. I think that would be, I'm a pretty Spartan writer, Mr. Chairman, but that may be even beyond what we can do. But we'll also provide it to you electronically, so
That'll be fine.
you'll be able to deal with the pages pretty quickly. And could we get those to you by Tuesday morning? When would you
Yeah,
like
because
that?
we won't we'll adopt them at the same time, and I think we'll end up making our decision, so.
Okay, perfect.
Mr. Chairman, before you close the public hearing,
Yeah.
comment?
Sure, just say your name and.
Yes, my name is Ron Charette, I was at by Brookfield Road, and I'm a resident of this town.
Does it need to be followed?
Yeah, do we need to swear you in?
Sure.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Mr. Chairman, having observed the first meeting, I mean, I was, as a citizen of this town, I was amazed. I mean, first of all, I thank all of you for your time volunteering. You're intelligent people, and I think you commit a lot to this town. I was just amazed at the first meeting, how many times this town was threatened with lawsuit, overturned by a judge, every point. You're gonna lose, you're gonna lose, you're gonna lose. The folks in this community come to you because they feel that there are bylaws, zoning bylaws in this town that protect them. And they come to you for that protection. And I think you try to do a good job to protect them, and yet you are threatened constantly with that, and clouds a lot of times the issue. The concern at this point is you had a very, very intelligent individual go out and make a determination on behalf of the citizens of this community as to whether or not they were protected under the zoning bylaws. And he came back to this town and issued a cease and desist order, which he presented to you, and asked you to enforce it, and asked you to support that. The opposition says it's wrong. The citizens of this town say they need that protection. They look to you for that. They don't look to you to be threatened. They don't look to this town to be threatened with lawsuits after lawsuit after lawsuit. They ask you to protect them. And many of us have come meeting after meeting after meeting asking you to make the decision. It's very unfortunate to hear that you want to postpone it to another meeting. I really wish you would consider making that decision tonight and protect the citizens of this town who come to you.
So I want to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second by Ron. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So, now we'll deliberate on all the facts and evidence that we have. The only thing is that if, any of us are gonna speak, we should probably try to speak into the microphone, so.
Wait a second. You say you want to have another meeting next week, is that right?
Well, I,
Because I tell you one thing right now, I think you have enough without me. I got to kind of make a problem on May 2nd.
May 2nd,
Well, that's what it would be,
you have a conflict?
very much so.
Well, let's deliberate.
Okay, deliberate. Why can't we come to a conclusion tonight, that's all?
Do you think you're ready to come to a conclusion tonight?
As far as I can tell, as far as I am concerned, yes.
Do we have reasoning that we have to state why, or,
Yeah.
and then you would be our spokesman?
I'm gonna, spokesman for what?
Well, as to what the board's reasoning is, the chairman, right?
Well,
Sit
no,
down.
we should, the vote, we should determine what the reasoning is.
Yes.
To make the vote, that's
Okay,
between
what-
all of the board members.
I guess that's what I'm getting ahead of it.
Yeah, so, the question here is that, whether or not, the facts
Mhm.
come out to support upholding that decision.
Yeah, is this a zoning issue?
That's number one.
And I think it is.
Okay, well,
Because- And what was interesting, just a little while ago, is that maybe it is a zoning issue. When asked about getting a special permit and they wanted variance.
Well, if it's, here's the thing is, all right, and this is the way I'm looking at this, all right? Number one, are the detention basins a use or a structure? Right? If they're a structure, then then,
Then it's invisible to zoning.
no, it's not. One structure, if one structure would fall on, if they're a structure, it would fall under, one of the basins would fall under 48, chapter 7, because it's been there for more than 10 years. So if it was a structure, if the
If
basin.
it's been there for 10 years, it's a structure?
No, if it is a structure and it's been there for more than 10 years, then the argument would be, is that it.
It's not zoning.
Well, no, it is zoning, but we couldn't enforce it because it's been there for more than 10
Okay,
years.
all right.
Okay?
That's it.
Okay,
Go ahead.
which, if the basins are a structure, the other one was built in 2014, so then we could enforce the other basin, because one was built like 2005, 2006, the other one was built in 2014. So that's if you accept that the basins are a structure, right? But I don't think that,
I'm looking at it as a change of use.
well, I mean, if you look at it that it's just a use, then that doesn't apply at all.
And it's an extension of the landfill park. That's what I'm looking
So the landfill park does not fall, so the landfill were in Charlton.
Yes.
If it physically were in Charlton and it was an agricultural zone, then it doesn't fall within any of our bylaws in the schedule, in our use schedule.
at. So we'd have to deny it.
Right, so the fact that the basins are in Charlton, and you're saying that they're part of the landfill, and
Yes.
therefore, because they're part of the landfill, it's not,
We had- We have some testimony and some evidence that suggests and delineates that's part of the landfill park.
So then if you accept that.
Yes.
Okay, then you have to go one step further.
Okay?
You have to say, are landfills allowed within Charlton?
And I don't think, no, they're not.
I'd say they're not.
No, they're not.
Well, I'm just saying, those are the questions.
Right.
It's saying that the logic has to
And
be.
and so, we cannot allow it. We have to.
so, this is where, I thought about that, and, in two different detention basins, okay? And one detention basin has been there for quite a while. It is closer to the line. The basin that was labeled Z3
Yep.
is closer to the line.
Yes, yes,
The other basin, that west basin, which is not,
yes.
the west basin only services a big pile of dirt, essentially.
Yeah, but it's part of the landfill park.
So, if you look at and this is this is why I'm not ready necessarily to vote, because I haven't really decided on this part yet. Okay, so I looked at the binder, all right, and I was reading through the binder. And if you look at the end of the binder, the part that has to do with that particular basin built in 2014, it doesn't really mention, it mentions that there's a big pile of soil there, and that the soil has collapsed into the wetland. And if you look at all the maps, you look at all the stuff, it doesn't reference the landfill at all. It just mentions a big pile of dirt. So, Kenya do we have to interpret that because it's owned by that company, that it possibly could have come from the landfill, that it's gonna be used for the landfill, that it's part of now of that overall use?
Well, they describe themselves as a landfill park, disposal park, and it includes all the borders of it, including the elbow that's in Charlton, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, but I would agree with that, okay, but that doesn't mean that all the use, does that mean that no matter what happens in all of the land that they own, it's all the same use regardless, because It's a, because,
Because it's under the broad term landfill park.
so, but here's the thing is, all right, so if they took part of the land there and they decided they were gonna grow apple trees, that's an allowed use in an agricultural zone, even though that it's a landfill park. We would not be talking about that. That's an allowed use.
Yeah, but what they have, originally, there was, the flow was more than before those spaces were put in, there was a flow, drainage flow that, runoff flow, that was more than after these basins were put in. Now, that begs the question, why do we need the basins in the first place?
Well, obviously there was an issue.
Well, this is
There
the
was
thing.
that's an issue, there's a change in use.
Right, but this is the thing is so say that dirt came from someplace else. Say they moved that from another place that they owned and they've been piling it there, and all of a sudden that starts to, slip into the wetlands, and the town now says, you have a problem with the wetlands for the soil, okay? Is the soil itself,
It's part of the operation.
it's part of the operation?
Part of the landfill park use. That's the way I look at it.
So I look at it as it could be, but it doesn't necessarily need to be either. So if that, and I'm only talking about that one basin, I'm not talking about the other basin, that's a whole other problem for me.
Well, I gotta take the whole thing, it's one, right?
No, we
Why?
don't. We don't have to take the whole thing as one. We don't have to say, we either uphold the whole thing or deny the whole thing. We don't have to do that.
We don't.
No.
That's interesting.
Why would we have to?
Because it's because you're looking at a landfill, it's part of the park system that they have here, the borders that are in Charlton.
Yeah, I agree with that. They own the land.
Yeah, so it's part of that system. That's far as I can see. You can see the piecemeal, well, they've got trees here. It's the way I look
What about the other basin?
at it. If they had, like, I asked about buffer zones, if they had buffer zones and like, instead of the areas that are gravelled out right to the basin, if it were just, vegetation that sort of surrounds those basins, I would say, I'd give you more of a credit for that, what you're talking about. But I'd say it's all gravel right to those basins. Disturbed ground, right to those basins.
Well, that's the purpose for the basin, to catch the water runoff off of those roads and off of those areas. That which is actually protecting the wetlands. Because if you didn't have those basins to slow the flow of water, it would actually destroy those wetlands even more. So what happened was, when there was an issue with it,
Can't hear you, please.
DEP got involved, from my understanding. There was a court order that said they got together with our Conservation Commission to put in these basins to protect the wetlands, to actually fix the issue they had at hand. That's the reason for the basins, in my understanding, the reason for them. If you had vegetation in between the basins and the road, the basins would be useless. They wouldn't do their purpose. It actually worked.
Well, that's probably true, but why have the basins in the first place? Because there was a change in use.
Well, there was a problem that was overlooked.
Yeah.
To one or the other.
Yeah.
You're talking, when you try to say a change in use, you're just saying, are you saying? Originally there was nothing there, and now there's something there, so that's a change in use, is that what you're saying?
Originally, there was, well, basically disturbed ground, where those basins are, it's disturbed ground.
Oh, Bob, what do you,
Well, first of all, if there was roads around there, they would have had to have some sort of swale or some sort of water management system that was in place already. Whether it was adequate enough or actually did its job, obviously it didn't. And that's why, you know,
Right. But they didn't
They
really,
had to get involved.
Casella didn't really come to us and say that, look, we had something else there before and it really wasn't working.
no, they
So,
didn't.
you
That
know.
was an assumption.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what they never brought that up. And there may not have been anything there.
No.
No.
May not have.
Do you think it's a use that's in violation right now? I mean, you've read and heard from Leonardo.
As far as I'm concerned, so landfill park is part of the landfill park, and that's a zoning violation. Yeah.
Could we determine whether or not the catch basins are structures?
They didn't.
I heard you going back and forth here.
At some point, I did ask their expert whether he thought it was a structure, I thought, and he didn't really make a comment. I mean, our bylaw gives a definition of the structure, and our bylaw says, our definition of a structure under the bylaw, any combination of materials assembled at a fixed location and requiring attachment to the land through pilings, footings, foundations, and the like, to give support or shelter or to provide human habitation or use such as a building, bridge, trestle, tower, framework, tank, tunnel, tent, stadium, reviewing stand, platform, bin, fence, sign, flag pool, swimming pool, and the like. So, I mean, we could say that those catch basins fall into that category. I mean, if you thought that fell into that, I mean.
Now, in that, it said fences.
Fences are in the signs, flag poles. That's what the,
So if there was a fence around the catch basin itself, it would be considered a structure?
I don't know, is there a fence around this? Or, I mean, I have no idea. Is there even, do you even know? So if there's a fence around the detention basin, does that make it, because there's a fence, does that make the detention basin? Is there a definition of fence?
Well,